Good morning. Today is, I believe, March 20, I lost track of time, March 29th, 2024. It's Friday. We continue with Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman. We have finished the 30 chapters, and now we're on chapter 31, which is Love Your Fellow as Yourself. And again, we talked about before how the similarity in all religions in basic attempts to come to understanding, to closeness with the upper forces. Some call them God, like we, Hashem. Some call it upper world, or nature, or the dark force in Star Wars, or whatever they call it. Whether they ascribe to that characteristics of goodness or badness, or goodness and badness. In all cases, most people believe in something that is greater than them. Not all people, but many believe. For Judaism, chapter 32 begins with love your fellow as yourself, and it talks about how to treat the issues that we have by realizing that the negativism in us comes from the animalistic soul. Animalistic soul, we have divine soul wrapped by the animalistic soul. Animalistic soul has a lot of good in it. It helps us to do day-to-day activities, to breathe, to live, to eat, to work, to do sports, to do everything that we need for our body. But it also extends itself to the egotistic side of it. It's all about me. It's all about body. That's the job of the animalistic soul. And our job, as most people, Benoni, in-betweeners, to transform it, or at least to control it, to utilize its survival characteristics to function on Earth from the characteristics that are selfish and takes away from other people. In that sense, when you think about the stories of the monks, Christian monks in monasteries, certain orders of these monks, they will whip themselves with the chains and bleed and humiliate themselves and try to make themselves miserable. And we as Jews look at it as extremes and not really understanding why they do that. But the fundamental underlying reason for that is very similar to what Tanya explaining for us. When we have issues, when we think about, when Tanya says, the tools that we learn in chapters 29 to 31 will help you loosen, this is Rabbi Miller saying, to loosen the ties of your ego and find joy in the spiritual through adopting the outlook of your divine soul. In this chapter, we'll discuss how this egoless attitude will affect the way that you look at other people. So when Tanya goes through this, in the previous discussions, we talked about when we think about ourselves and the misery sessions, periodic misery sessions, not continuously. We can't do it all the time because we have to live joyfully our life. But let's say once a week, every Tuesday from 6 to 7 in the evening, you go through the situation. And that's what Kabbalists in Zohar used to do it many years ago. They'll get together in Tzafat and sit on the floor and beat themselves, not physically, but I am nothing, I'm horrible. In today's Western world eyes, it seems like some kind of crazy rituals of fanatics. But Tanya is saying basically, if you come to true realization by hooking yourself with a chokhmah, with upper spherat of our functionality, spiritual functionality, then you realize it's only my body, it's only the animalistic soul makes my body desire things, and how low those desires in comparison with the lofty ideas of spirituality. So in this session, you separate yourself, you essentially spiritually separate your divine soul, make it yearn for to connect with Hashem, with Ein Sof directly, and you can see essentially now the separation. The physicality is on the left and the divine to the right, And in that state, you crystallize your divine divinity. And then I make a little picture here, how all souls of Jews will all have different bodies. See if you see the picture here. Okay, here they will all have different bodies, but the souls are all interconnected. And ultimately they're connected to the Ein Sof, to infinite light. So all Jews in the world, on the whole earth, Australia, Sweden, Israel, America, New Zealand, Russia, you name it, they're all interconnected, and they're directly connected to Ein Sof Chochmah. In that state, when you reach that state, then you help each other. This is a mechanism that ultimately helps us. And after that session, Tanya says, come back to your body. Now you kind of cleanse it, take yourself, the soul, out of the body, cleanse the body, and bring it back, like into a cleaned vessel. Divinity now unites with a cleaned vessel. It says, when your body, which separates you from others, becomes repulsive and disgraceful to you. So it's not that you hate yourself, but it's your understanding, repulsive and disgraceful, how low it is physicality in comparison to the lofty divine ideas. How much more fulfilling it is to help another human being. If somebody is not feeling good, come to visit him, make him a chicken soup, or help to take him to the hospital, to the doctor, or to do things like that, do mitzvot, and pray for him to actually do that. That's also part of the process to realizing that I want to go to see a football game, and that's why I cannot help my neighbor. But then you can send that to watch the football game. Not that anything wrong to go to a football game, but if other things are happening in the world, many problems, misery, and you put your time into the Hollywood movies and the football games and things like that, you don't allow your divinity to become, to reach the heights of your potential, and we all have this potential. You will appreciate more the value of the divine soul. Then Tanya says, then we'll become one. And that is loving your fellow. Section to loving your fellow is a whole Torah, and it quotes Hillel. It says here, yes, Tanya says, we need to be united down here in the physical world with the upper world. When division among the souls, God forbid, for the blessed Holy One won't dwell in a blemished place. And as we say, bless all of us, our Father, as one, with the light of your face, as has been explained in length earlier that we discussed. It quotes Hillel, Talmud Shabbos 31a. Hillel the elder commented about observing this mitzvah of loving your fellow as yourself, in quotes, says, it's the whole Torah, all of it. The rest is commentary. So love your fellow as yourself, that's the entire Torah. And the mechanism, Tanya is explaining how to get that, is to get that unity between the souls of all Jews. And I would extend it, perhaps not only Jews, but all human beings. And we believe the time will come that that realization will come upon all the humanity. In the meantime, in our world today, 2024, we're witnessing a lot of separation and division in the world. The dark clouds are gathering in one spot, and the light is more exposed now. When the dark clouds gather in one spot, they make room for the light to shine. And that is preparing the times for the light to shine upon darkness and illuminate the entire world with the light of God, with Ein Sof. And the mechanism to do that, through the Chokhmah, on this world, we can reach that before the world to come takes place. That's what love your fellow as yourself is all about, and that's what Tanya explains. That's what Tanya explains, helps us even immediately to help us in this world. It sounds like a very lofty and maybe difficult concept. Say, well, how can I do it? I can't understand it. We can't understand it. It's not that difficult to understand. It's not that esoteric. It's pretty simple. But in our world today, we are wrapped in physicality so much that many of us, the world has lost the ability or simplicity of connecting to God. That's why when Jews left Egypt, initially there was no need to have a temple, believe it or not. God says, I will dwell among you. In other words, if you understand what we're talking about right now, you don't need a special place to go ahead and contemplate and to pray. You just continuously have a connection to God. But in practice, for humans, it was not easy to do, especially for the people who just left from Egypt. So the people who today are sitting, functioning in a world that became so materialistic. Essentially, we all humanity are in the Egypt concept, and it's difficult to break away from that connection. And because of that, that slave mentality, that connection to the world, make it difficult to understand what should be understood as simple and straightforward. Have a great day. Talk more about tomorrow. Well, tomorrow, Shabbat, we'll talk about on Sunday. Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy L'chaim, Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful Shabbos. And let all your problems and all the issues to be simplified and the problems go away. And let all your family from which maybe some of you separated come back. Let surprise phone call come to you and saying, hey, Dad, hey, Mom, hey, son, hey, brother, sister, I haven't talked to you for a long time, and now I happened to listen to this conversation, and it's just something in my soul made this call, how are you? And I want to reconnect. I want to go this process of reconnection because I love you. Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad. Shabbat Shalom.